My female neighbor accidentally sent me a message. Zachary, I finished washing your underwear. Remember to pick it up. She retracted it immediately, but I still saw it. It turned out that my husband's underwear had been washed by her for a whole year. I replied to her, "You've worked hard. If you open a store specializing in washing underwear one day, I'll definitely advertise for you." A minute later, my husband Zachary rushed out of the bedroom and scolded me. "What are you crazy about? Go apologize to Isabella." 1. Why apologize? I was thanking her, not going crazy. My tone was calm, but my heart in my chest felt like it was being scorched by a raging fire, and my internal organs were screaming in pain. I wanted to rush over and grab his clothes, demanding why he did it, but the pride in my bones wouldn't allow me to bow my head in front of him at this moment. She loves washing men's underwear so much, she can totally open a store. Not only will I advertise for her, but you can too. You're her biggest advertising sign. With your personal experience, she's sure to have a booming business. Zachary's face turned ugly. "Hannah, you're so mean. If you weren't willing to wash my underwear, why would I go to Isabella? She's willing to wash it for me, but you as my wife are unwilling. You don't reflect on your own problems, but instead humiliate her. Are you even human? Compared to you, Isabella is more like my wife. I'm going to sleep outside tonight. You should think carefully about how to be a qualified wife." The door slammed shut. The next second, the sound of keys came from the door. The door next door opened and closed again. The house was suddenly terribly quiet. Isabella's aggrieved sobs came through the balcony, carried by the cold draft. It was harsh and piercing. She said, "Zachary, is Hannah's sister angry?" Zachary replied with dissatisfaction, "Don't mind her. She's just unreasonable because she won't wash for me." "Zachary, I'm sorry. I sent the message to the wrong person." Zachary's voice softened instantly, completely different from the tone he used when talking to me. "It's not your fault. Don't take what she said to heart. I will definitely make her apologize to you." All the strength in my body seemed to be drained, and my tall spine collapsed. My hands and feet became extremely cold, and tears fell like broken pearls onto the ground. I sat stiffly on the floor, unable to understand. How am I not a qualified wife? Just because I don't wash his underwear. 2. On the second day after our marriage, Zachary and I had a disagreement. I have a severe cleanliness fetish. Looking at Zachary's underwear in the basket, with yellow stains and a terrible smell, I hesitated for a long time, but couldn't bring myself to do it. I asked Zachary to wash his own underwear. He wanted to throw it directly into the washing machine, but I stopped him. I told him the underwear was dirty and couldn't be washed in the washing machine. It was easy to get sick. He frowned. "What kind of disease? I've never heard of it. It's so troublesome for such a small thing." Seeing me turn cold, Zachary coaxed me, saying he would wash it by hand. It wasn't until later, when I got a skin disease, that I found out he had been secretly throwing his underwear into the washing machine. We had our biggest conflict ever. "Just because you threw your underwear in the washing machine, you got sick, you're so fussy." I looked up at him angrily. "Don't you realize your mistake? It's so simple to wash underwear. Why don't you wash it for me if it's so simple?" Zachary interrupted me loudly. "Which law says that wives must wash their husband's underwear? It's not like that." I stopped applying the medicine. After getting married, he seemed to gradually forget that I had a cleanliness fetish. He would throw his socks on the floor, not lift the toilet seat, wipe his feet with my towel, and so on. It wasn't like that when we were dating. Back then, he would carry wet wipes with him, wipe my hands, chopsticks, and table for me. Did he change, or was it all fake from the beginning? I frowned. "Which law says that a wife must wash her husband's underwear?" "You don't need a law, it's a social decision." Zachary stood up, put his feet on the table, and looked down at me. I angrily broke the cotton swab. "Go to hell with your social decision." We were Cold War for a whole week. Later, I saw his underwear drying on the balcony, hand-washed. I thought he finally understood me and was trying to make peace with me. I happily bought him a special washing machine for underwear, so he could use it when he didn't want to wash it by hand. However, the washing machine was never used. It turned out that someone had washed it for him. That day, It happened to be the day Isabella just moved in. 3. The phone on the table vibrated. It was a message from Zachary. Isabella is in a good mood. She has forgiven you. Come over and apologize to her, and it's over. As long as you wash my underwear, I won't bother Isabella. I stared at the chat box. My fingers paused for a moment and typed 3 words. Before I could send it, laughter came from the balcony next door. I went out. Zachary had his arm around Isabella's shoulder. Isabella was smiling, and she was hanging a pair of underwear. Zachary's underwear. The scene, as Zachary said, they looked more like a couple. Isabella, the underwear you washed is so fragrant. Zachary, you're so funny. It's the laundry detergent that's fragrant. No, the laundry detergent is just an auxiliary. Without your hands, it wouldn't be so fragrant. It was as if something dirty had gotten into my ears, and the feeling of vomiting was stronger than the heartache. Hey, I made a sound. They both turned around. 2 faces clearly entered the camera I had already started. Seeing me holding my phone, Zachary's face turned black. Hannah, what are you doing? I saved the recorded video. I'm helping you record this sweet moment. It's so memorable. Zachary. I deleted the 3 words I hadn't sent in the chat box and said it directly. Let's get a divorce. No matter what Zachary's reaction was, I turned around and went into the house. Then I closed the balcony door to avoid any more unclean sounds coming in. Then, I directly sent the recorded video to the owners group. With the caption, "Thanks to MS. Isabella of 2413 for washing my husband's underwear every day. I won't send you a banner. I'll trouble you again with his underwear in the future, and also trouble you with him." After a while, there was a banging sound at the door. Hannah, are you crazy? Hurry up and retract the message. I locked the door, and Zachary couldn't get in. The banging continued for a while, and my phone rang. I knew it was Zachary without thinking. I simply silenced it. Seeing that I didn't answer the phone, Zachary continued to bang on the door. I put on my headphones and listened to music. Close my eyes and sleep. I don't care how long Zachary wants to bark. It's not me who's embarrassed, it's him. 4. No matter how much I told myself, it's a blessing to see through a man's trash. I still couldn't sleep all night. I stared at the ceiling all night and listened to music all night until my phone died. This night, I counted every single thing between me and Zachary. I suddenly realized that it had always been my one-man show after marriage. I've been constantly retreating and compromising. My tolerance for his sloppiness has been decreasing. Picking up his socks thrown on the floor, replacing the disposable toilet mat, preparing multiple towels for him to wipe his feet. I just asked him to wash his own underwear, just such a small request. He even had to collude with other women to deceive me. He is no longer the man who held me in the palm of his hand. I finally fell asleep, but I was awakened by the sound of someone trying to kill themselves after a while. My head ached badly. I rubbed my temples and walked to the balcony. I saw Isabella trying to jump off the balcony of her own home. The firefighters were already on the scene. Zachary was so scared that he almost knelt down to her. Isabella, be good, come down quickly. Isabella was crying. Brother Zachary, I can't face living anymore. All the owners are laughing at me behind my back. I just wanted to help you. How could I have done something wrong? You're not wrong. No one said you were wrong, did they? The other residents who were watching the drama on their own balconies didn't reply. A few of them rolled their eyes silently. Seeing me come out, Zachary shouted at me. Hannah, look at what you've done. Human life is at stake. You should apologize to Isabella quickly. Sister Hannah, I really didn't know you would mind so much. Please forgive me. If you don't forgive me, I won't live. Zachary said urgently. Hannah, what are you still doing? Apologize quickly. You're killing someone, do you know that? I calmly moved a chair from the room to the edge of the railing and stood on it. Zachary frowned. Hannah, what are you crazy about? Can you stop making trouble? There's a limit to being unreasonable. I howled at the top of my lungs. My life is so miserable. My husband is cheating on me with a mistress, and he's forcing me to apologize to the mistress. I don't want to live anymore. 5. Isabella didn't expect me to do this. She paused and stared at me blankly. The firefighters upstairs, who had been ready, took the opportunity and kicked Isabella in. Seeing this, I flicked my hair and walked down calmly. Zachary helped her up with concern. Isabella threw herself into Zachary's arms, crying, "I'm not a mistress." Zachary glared at me, his eyes as if he wanted to devour me alive. "What are you talking nonsense about? Isabella just washed my underwear. Nothing happened between us, we are innocent." I couldn't help but sneer. If there's no physical cheating, doesn't mean it's not cheating? Emotional cheating is just as disgusting. I was just about to retort when the resident of 2410 spoke first, bluntly saying, "She's already lying in someone else's husband's arms. Isn't she a mistress?" The resident of 2414 echoed, "Not only that, she even washed his underwear. Tsk. Adulterers, bah." The other residents, one after another, were all spitting at Zachary and Isabella. The two of them immediately looked embarrassed. The pair of underwear hanging over their heads swayed in the wind, as if slapping them in the face. I clasped my hands together. "Thank you all for your support. When I get divorced, please come and have some candy." "Okay." A thunderous applause sounded. Zachary helped Isabella up. The two of them slunk into the house with their heads down. I started packing my bags. When I was almost done packing, the door suddenly made a noise. Someone was picking the lock. The next second, the door opened. Zachary walked in angrily and overturned my luggage. "Hannah, it's you who had to make it known to everyone. Now you know you're embarrassed and you want to escape, huh?" Isabella followed in with a plate of lotus root and sweet rice. Her eyes were red. "Sister Hannah, you really misunderstood me and Brother Zachary. It's my fault. I washed Brother Zachary's underwear without your permission. I thought it was just a small favor. I specially made a plate of lotus root and sweet rice to apologize to you. If you blame anyone, blame me. Don't be angry with Brother Zachary. I don't want to affect your husband and wife relationship because of me." Zachary snorted. "You quickly explain in the group that you are neurotic and misunderstood us." 6. I looked down at the plate of lotus root. The color, the aroma was so familiar. It was the lotus root that Zachary and I liked the most, and we would eat it almost every 3 days. No wonder I couldn't find the store Zachary mentioned. It turned out that it wasn't bought, but made by Isabella. The sweetness that lingered in my memory suddenly turned bitter. I realized more and more how ridiculous my marriage was. It had long been marked by someone else, and I didn't even notice. I sneered. "What misunderstanding? She washed your underwear, isn't that a fact?" I raised my hand and knocked over the plate of lotus root. "Who wants to eat this disgusting thing?" The porcelain shards flew, and the crisp sound of breaking shattered this hypocritical and peaceful scene. Zachary's eyes turned red with anger, and he slapped me. "Hannah, you're so ungrateful. Isabella worked so hard to cook this plate of lotus root, and this is how you treat her kindness. What exactly do you want? Do you want us to kneel down and apologize to you?" Isabella seemed to be about to cry. "Brother Zachary, don't hit Sister Hannah. She's just angry for a moment." The thread of reason snapped. I covered my swollen face and laughed loudly. This slap completely shattered all my past and affection with him. I grabbed the broom nearby and swung it at the couple. "Get out!" Zachary anxiously protected Isabella behind him. "Hannah!" I slapped him across the face with a broom. This was in return for the slap he gave me. "How long are you going to go crazy?" Ignoring Zachary's roar, I waved the broom and drove the two of them out. Zachary clenched his fists and glared at me angrily. Isabella hid behind him weakly, sobbing, "It's all my fault, I'll move out tonight." Zachary immediately turned to comfort her. "It's not your fault. We are innocent. It's all her fault. If anyone leaves, it's her." "Brother Zachary." Isabella looked at him tearfully. Suddenly, a hand appeared behind her, suddenly grabbing her hair. 7. Isabella was pulled backwards. "Bitch, I treat you as my best friend, and this is how you treat me." "Jada, what are you talking about?" Isabella looked at the woman behind her with frightened eyes, who was baring her teeth in anger. Zachary was stunned for a moment by the sudden change. After reacting, he frowned and quickly stepped forward, grabbing the woman's hand, trying to pry it open. Jada angrily bit his arm. Zachary let go of her hand in pain. I folded my arms and watched the good show with interest. Jada raised her hand and slapped Isabella several times. Both sides of Isabella's face were swollen. "Brother Zachary, save me." Zachary roared, "Stop or I'll call the police." Jada smiled indifferently. "Okay, call the police. Let the police arrest this pervert." Her gaze swept up and down Zachary. "Are you her new lover?" She sneered. "You don't know she's a pervert, do you? I kindly invited this bitch to my house as a guest. But she actually stole my husband's underwear, once and then again." Zachary paused. Isabella hurriedly defended herself. "I didn't." Seeing her quibble, Jada spat at her face angrily. "Bah, my home surveillance captured it." Isabella's face turned white instantly. Jada continued. "I also asked my friends, and their home surveillance also captured you stealing their husband's underwear." "Isabella, you are a complete pervert." "I'm not." Isabella cried pitifully. She looked at Zachary helplessly. "Brother Zachary, save me. Don't believe her, she's slandering me." Zachary shook her outstretched hand, as if he had been electrocuted, his eyes full of disbelief. "I'm slandering you?" Jada sneered. She grabbed Isabella's hair. "The evidence is conclusive, come on. Let's go see the police." "I'm not going." Isabella suddenly burst into strength, her face twisted. "I'm not a pervert, I'm not." She suddenly pushed Jada away. Unexpectedly, Jada rolled down the stairs. There was no movement. 8. Isabella's eyes widened, and her whole body trembled. She looked at Zachary for help. "Zachary." Zachary immediately took a big step back and yelled at her. "Get away from me, freak." Isabella paused. A hint of malice flashed in her eyes. She looked at Zachary, who looked like he had seen a ghost, and then at Jada, who was unconscious, her eyes full of unwillingness. Then she quickly fled the scene. I quickly checked Jada's condition. Fortunately, she was still breathing. I quickly called an ambulance and the police. Zachary stood there blankly throughout the whole process, as if the incident had dealt him a big blow. Jada was taken away by the ambulance. The police took a statement from me and Zachary before leaving. I went into the room, packed my scattered clothes back into the suitcase, and zipped it up. Zachary held my hand, his voice tired. "Hannah, stop making a scene. My head is in a mess now. I don't have the energy to argue with you." He sighed deeply. "I didn't expect Isabella to be like that. I won't contact her anymore." I found it extremely ridiculous. "Oh, really?" I sneered. "You found out that your ideal wife is actually a pervert. So you turned your head and remembered me. You're Zhao Kongzhi? Zachary, don't you think you're ridiculous? Since last night when I proposed a divorce, have you ever thought about trying to keep me? Have you ever had this thought? You haven't. You just want me to apologize to your sweetheart and want me to explain to everyone and save your lost face. As for the divorce, it doesn't matter to you. In your heart, our marriage has already been in name only." Zachary's lips trembled. "I didn't think that." 9. Zachary, you think Isabella is a pervert. What about you? Giving your underwear to a woman you just met to wash. You and Isabella, you're both equally perverted. I forcefully pulled my hand away from him, frowned, and wiped the place Zachary had touched again and again. I felt so disgusted that I wanted to vomit. Seeing my actions, Zachary's expression twitched, and his face lost a bit of composure. "I've already applied for the divorce online. See you in 30 days. I picked up my luggage and walked out. Zachary's gloomy voice came from behind. "Hannah, don't think I'll beg you to come back once you're gone." I sneered. "If you beg me, I won't come back." I didn't want to stay in this disgusting place for a second longer. When I got home, my parents were already waiting for me at the door. They looked at me, their eyes filled with wrinkles and redness. "You're back." My parents' voices were choked with sobs as they embraced me. A warm and loving embrace. I buried my head in their arms and cried uncontrollably. "Mom, Dad, I'm sorry." I cried and apologized to them, hoping they would forgive me for being so stubborn at the beginning. My parents had never liked Zachary from the start, saying he was hypocritical and dishonest. Drowned in sweet words, I had once argued with them about it. Helpless, my parents could only accept Zachary in the end. On the eve of the wedding, my mother held my hand, her eyes wet. "I hope it's my dad and I who have missed the mark." But the facts proved that it was me who missed the mark. Before marriage, I was a treasure pampered in my parents' hands, with 10 fingers that never touched a drop of water. After marriage, I went from knowing nothing about housework to being able to do everything, all for love, willingly paying, and trying to overcome my cleanliness. In the end, it was just a joke. Zachary and Isabella's affair was known to everyone in the neighborhood. And about Isabella stealing underwear. Many owners said they had lost their underwear every now and then before. Now they suspected Isabella had stolen it. The property management checked. Sure enough, the underwear thief was Isabella. Zachary couldn't hold his head up in the neighborhood for a while, and people would point at his back and laugh at him when he walked on the street. He couldn't do what he said he would. In less than a week, he came to find me. 10. Hannah, Zachary and I are here to take you home. Zachary's mother smiled ingratiatingly as she opened the door. She had always looked down on me, thinking I was not worthy of her son. She always insinuated that I had a pair of noble hands and couldn't do housework. Her insults were crude and unpleasant. For Zachary, I ignored her dissatisfaction and blocked out her dirty words. I was respectful and filial to her, trying to be the good daughter-in-law in her eyes. But even after I learned to do housework, she was still dissatisfied with me. Now I understand that some people are not worth pleasing. Now that she's come to my door, it's not because she can't bear to lose me as her daughter-in-law, but simply for the sake of her son's face. Zachary stood behind his mother, hands in his pockets, looking like he was not coming willingly and would never give in. Zachary's mother pretended to be angry and twisted his arm. "Hurry up, call your wife home." Zachary pursed his lips, and his mother pushed him again before he finally condescended to speak. "If you're not angry anymore, hurry home." I smiled coldly. "Zachary, what kind of feed did you eat to make your pigskin so thick? You can introduce it to the farmers. They will definitely be grateful to you." Zachary was instantly displeased. "Hannah, I've come to you so humbly. What more do you want?" "Bah, your anger could launch a rocket into the sky. Get lost, go wherever it's cool. Don't affect the air I breathe here." The smile on Zachary's mother's face froze. "Hannah, you're very proud of making things so awkward, aren't you? You're deliberately trying to ruin my son's face." This sharp tone was the one I was most familiar with. "The biggest responsibility for this is clearly yours. If you wash his underwear, would he have to find someone else? I've always washed his underwear since he was a child. We're both women with 2 hands. What's so noble about you?" It's true. A family that doesn't enter a family doesn't have the same door. They all think the same way. 11. I may not be noble, but I don't touch shit either. Your little son can't even wipe his own ass after going to the toilet. His underwear is covered in shit. Even kindergarten kids are cleaner than him. "Hannah, what are you talking about?" Zachary was furious. Zachary's mother raised her voice. "So what if it's shit? You're his wife. You have to wash it for him." I smiled back at her. "If you enjoy holding his shit-stained underwear, that's your business. Don't make everyone else have the same heavy taste." Zachary's mother was so angry that she covered her chest, looking like she couldn't breathe. I frowned. I didn't know if she was acting. Her heart was indeed a bit problematic, and I didn't want her to have an accident at my door. Subconsciously, I wanted to help her, but Zachary pushed me away hard. "Get away." "Hannah, you know my mother has a bad heart. Are you trying to anger her to death?" He used a lot of force, and I fell heavily to the ground. Instantly, a sharp pain shot through my abdomen, as if I had been stabbed by 1,000 needles. Soon, my white pants were stained with blood. Zachary's pupils dilated, and he was startled. He hurriedly stepped forward and held me. "Hannah, are you okay?" I wanted to push him away in disgust, but I didn't have the strength. My eyes went dark, and I lost consciousness. When I woke up, I was already in the hospital. Zachary's eyes were red, and his stubble seemed to have grown in this short time. He looked at me cautiously, full of guilt. "I'm sorry, Hannah. I didn't know you were pregnant." I was stunned for a moment. "Pregnant?" Zachary's mother glared at me fiercely, her words full of sarcasm and bitterness. "You're so reckless even when you're pregnant. The baby is gone. It's all your fault. Marrying a woman like you is really unlucky." "Mom, stop it," Zachary said wearily. "Go out." Zachary's mother was angry and left. Zachary wanted to hold my hand, but I dodged it. His eyes dimmed. Zachary, don't put on this heartbroken look, it makes me sick. He never expected this child from the beginning. It was me who proposed trying to conceive, and he just responded with a faint at the time. Throughout the whole process, he was neither active nor enthusiastic. His mind was probably on Isabella next door. Now that the child accidentally died in his hands, it's just fate. 12. Zachary frowned. Hannah, I know you're angry with me, and I regret it too. I'll make it up to you. We'll have another child. I laughed. Zachary, are you sick? We're getting a divorce. I reminded him word by word. I won't get a divorce, Zachary said firmly. I looked at him calmly. Do you know what my first reaction was when I heard the baby was gone? I felt relieved. Zachary, I don't want anything to do with you anymore. Zachary was stunned, his expression shattered in an instant. Go away, please be on time for the divorce. Zachary turned around stiffly, his head drooping, and walked out step by step. I suddenly called out to him. He turned around excitedly and looked at me. Hannah. Zachary, I ask you, were you pretending when we were dating, or did you change after marriage? Perhaps he didn't expect me to ask this question. He was stunned for a moment. After a while, his lips trembled, and he wanted to say, Forget it, I interrupted him. It doesn't matter what the truth is. Zachary's eyes were desperate, and he walked out dejectedly. I touched my flat stomach. I never felt its existence, and it left. It's okay. This is fine. During my hospitalization, Zachary sent flowers and supplements every day. I threw everything into the trash can. He was still resisting. Every day he said sorry, and can we not get a divorce? I ignored him. A few days before the divorce, Zachary may have realized that there was no turning back for our marriage. He stopped texting me. However, on the day of the divorce, Zachary didn't come. I waited at the Civil Affairs Bureau for a day and called all day, but I couldn't reach him. In the end, he even turned off his phone. Did he want to escape the divorce by doing this? Angrily, I went to his house. I rang the doorbell for a long time, but no one opened it. I thought he wasn't home. Just as I was about to leave, the door opened. 13. The door opened a crack, and Isabella poked her head out. She was only wearing a thin nightgown. Her complexion was rosy, and her eyes were watery. I frowned. After Isabella had hurt Jada and fled, she was caught by the police the next day. Later, I heard that she gave a lot of money to get Jada to issue a letter of understanding. She was released. I didn't expect Zachary to still be with Isabella. Since he wanted to be with her, why didn't he come for the divorce? Where's Zachary? Sorry, Hannah. Zachary and I had a great time last night. He's fast asleep now. Isabella's tone was frivolous, and I got goosebumps all over. Tell him, just because he didn't come, the divorce can't be done now, and we have to wait another 30 days. I don't have that patience. I'll contact a lawyer to prepare for a divorce lawsuit. Isabella twirled the hair in front of her chest and smiled indifferently. Okay, I'll tell Zachary. Suddenly, there was a strange sound of a heavy object hitting the ground inside the house. It must be Zachary who woke up. Isabella blocked my view as I tried to look inside. Her eyes were flustered, and then she gave me the boot. Hannah, you can go if there's nothing else. I looked at her suspiciously. Since he's awake, I'd better talk to him face to face, so he won't take me seriously. Isabella held the doorknob, blocking me with her body. Her whole face changed. Don't worry, I will definitely convey your words. There was another sound from inside the house. You go away quickly, Isabella was suddenly pushed open, and with a bang, the door opened completely. I was shocked to see the scene in front of me. Zachary was lying on the ground, his hands and feet tied to a chair. The ropes that bound him were somewhat loose because of his struggle. He was naked, and his skin was covered in shockingly crisscrossed scars. His mouth was also stuffed with a piece of cloth, and he could only make a mmm sound. On closer inspection, it was his underwear. I could faintly hear him shouting help. I took a big step back, my back felt cold, and my heart seemed to stop beating. 14. Isabella's eyes were bloodshot, as if they were poisoned. She let out a terrifying roar and pounced on Zachary. Her hands clutched his shoulders tightly, her bright red nails digging deep into Zachary's flesh. Zachary's brows furrowed in pain, and his whole body arched like a carp leaping out of water. Why? Why do you still want to escape? Isabella roared angrily with excitement. Zachary, don't you love my lotus root dessert the most? Didn't you say the underwear I washed smelled the best? A creepy smile curled up at the corner of her mouth, her eyes filled with madness. I can make lotus root dessert for you for the rest of my life, and wash your underwear for the rest of my life. Don't escape, okay? Isabella reached out and touched Zachary's face. They all say I'm a pervert. You and I are the same kind of people. We can be a loving perverted couple. Zachary shook his head in terror, struggling to throw Isabella off him. Enraged, Isabella slapped Zachary's face frantically. You forced me. Suddenly, she pulled out a fruit knife from somewhere and stabbed it into Zachary's body fiercely. Zachary's entire eyeball bulged out, and his eyes were bloodshot. Isabella still wouldn't give up. Again and again. In and out. In and out again. Zachary's body twitched continuously. Gradually, all movement stopped. Everything happened so fast I froze. Isabella turned to look at me. She held a bloody knife in her hand. Her face was covered in blood, and there was a smile on her lips, just like a demon crawling up from hell. I screamed and ran downstairs. Isabella didn't chase after me, but I didn't dare stop running. As I ran, I took out my phone and called the police, my voice trembling. Hello. I want to report a murder. Someone's been killed. Someone's been killed. 15. The police arrived at the scene quickly. Zachary had lost too much blood and was already dead. As for Isabella, she was lying beside Zachary with a knife in her chest. She was also dead. The police ruled it a suicide. Suicide was certain, but not out of fear of crime. Her insane look before she died clearly showed that she was crazy. I looked at Zachary lying in a pool of blood. His eyes were wide open, and he died with his eyes open. I couldn't help but sigh. The Zachary who happily gave his underwear to Isabella probably never thought that he would one day die at the hands of this woman he thought was virtuous. According to the police investigation, after being released from the police station, Isabella searched for Zachary many times, but was rejected by him. A few days ago, which was the day Zachary stopped harassing me with messages, she knocked on Zachary's door with a plate of lotus root dessert. Zachary softened his heart for a moment and ate the lotus root dessert. The lotus root dessert was probably drugged, and Zachary fainted halfway through eating it. Isabella dragged him into the house, and they never came out of the house again. From the scars on Zachary's body, it was not difficult to see that he had suffered inhuman abuse in the past few days. Upon receiving the news of Zachary's death, Zachary's mother was greatly stimulated. That fragile heart unexpectedly persisted. She was fine, she just fainted. When she woke up, she grabbed me and blamed Zachary's death on me. It's all your fault. If you had done your duty as a wife, why would Zachary go and provoke that pervert? You killed my son. Why didn't that pervert stab you to death? Why didn't you die? Out of pity for her being a white-haired person sending a black-haired person, I didn't argue with her. In the end, I kindly advised her to mourn and take good care of her heart. 16. I remained Zachary's nominal wife as the divorce didn't go through. Out of humanity, I personally took care of his funeral arrangements. Thanks to the mortician's extraordinary makeup skills, the shameful marks on Zachary's body were covered, preserving his last bit of dignity. The cold corpse was sent into the high-temperature crematorium and eventually turned into insignificant ashes. I brought Zachary's ashes to Zachary's mother's home. Zachary's mother didn't listen to advice after all. Heartbroken and furious, she had a stroke. Now she can only sit in a wheelchair. Her mouth is crooked and she can't speak. Well, the world has one less unpleasant voice. It's going to be better. I didn't expect such an ending. I didn't become a divorcee, but a widow instead. And then I inherited all of Zachary's property. The house and the car were all mine. I didn't have to split the property with him. While sorting through Zachary's belongings, I found a scratch card. I casually picked up Zachary's ID card and scratched away happily. I won. Although I only won $1,000, it was a good start. I sold the house. The day before I moved, I prepared a big bag of candy and gave it out to everyone door to door. Although I'm not divorced, the situation is pretty much the same. I'm single. As promised, I'm treating everyone to candy. Thank you for your support. Although I'm flying against the wind, I sincerely wish you all smooth sailing. They all smiled and took my candy. If your heart is facing the sun, you won't be afraid of anything. I wish you sunshine all the way in the future too. The sun was shining outside the window. I took a sip of fragrant coffee. A man in a suit was sitting upright in front of me. He was my mother's friend's son. My blind date. Excuse me, do you wash your own underwear? I asked. Perhaps he didn't expect the first question I asked to be this. The man was stunned, and then his face quickly turned red. He nervously held the coffee cup with his fingers. This. I smiled. Please answer honestly, this question is very important.